To read or not to read? That is the question we must ask ourselves today. For can a man so truly illiterate find happiness within such pages? The answer may indeed shock you. Welcome back to another episode of Reading Renzo. Oh, hi there. You just caught me reading absolute dog shit. Welcome back to another episode of Reading Renzo. It's been a hot minute. Not too long though. I bet you guys didn't expect me to actually do another episode anytime soon. I bet you guys were like, he's done. It's a one-off. He's not gonna read it. You think this guy's gonna read anything else? No, I've been a very healthy reader, as you might be able to tell. I have read well over 16 books since the last time we did one of these. So, not too bad. If you're unfamiliar with what Reading Renzo is, it's basically me just giving long-winded thoughts on the comics that I've read, or books. You know, we might eventually read books, but I'm not that literate, so we'll see about that. But I've been really getting into comics, as I'm sure you can tell. I've got a ton back here, and I've got a ton here, and I've just it's actually getting over to the point where it's almost like probably too much, but I have a very healthy backlog built up, and I have been dedicating myself to reading. I mean, again, like 15 books, or 15 plus books from the end of December to now. I'm recording this, what is it, like May 21st, yeah. I mean, not too bad if I dare say so myself. I don't want to sell myself too much credit. I mean, there are people who read a book like every day, but I mostly read books before bed and at work. I've been doing that. I read like half an hour on my break at work. So that's mostly what I've been doing. Yeah, if you guys are curious and if you guys want to listen to me ramble about comics and shit, this is the place to come to. The first video I did didn't necessarily get the response I expected. I kind of thought that it would be more like fun for people, so I thought it would get more views. I don't really care about views or anything, but I just expected to maybe see it do better. I think it's got like 78 views or something like that, so it's not like it didn't blow up like I didn't expect it. Well, again, I didn't expect it to get like thousands of views. I just expected it to do better than it did. But I did get some really great comments and some people who threw in their recommendations and stuff. Some great conversations in that section. So that was genuinely really fun and wholesome. Stargard Studios, who is a regular in my channel, but he recommended the ongoing Batman Superman World's Finest run by Mark Waid. Slicks K Demon 17 recommends Touch of Typhoid, the Daredevil Epic Collection by Ann Nocienti, and Superman for All Seasons. And then also he's recommended anything from Daniel Warren Johnson, including Do a Powerbomb, which I've heard very good things about, Extremist, Space, Mullet, Murder Falcon, and then Transformers. So thank you again for those recommendations. Chilled Out Nate recommended Batman Long Halloween. Thank you to everyone who did recommend comments. And if you guys are watching this and you have any comic recommendations, please, this is the place for people who are basically just getting into comics to really just like kind of, that's the whole point of this, right? I'm sharing my first impressions and thoughts with you guys as someone who's generally new to this hobby. And obviously as the series continues, I'll get more and more. And obviously I do have some very specific picks in here and some it's mostly Marvel and DC, but there is one outlier. But the next few, I have picked up some very random books. So it's just gonna get more chaotic as time goes on. But I think that's enough rambling. That's enough getting into the nitty gritty. I'm gonna go ahead and explain like how we're gonna do this, and then we'll just jump right into it. So last time I didn't really have like a method of going about it. I kind of just went based off of the order I read. I think it was basically just the order I started reading to when I had stopped reading. And this is kind of like that, but not really. So I've decided to separate this into three major categories. The first one being single issues. So if you know anything about single issue, I mean, if you know anything about comics, you know what a single issue is. It's just a basic ass comic book you'd find at your comic book shop, you know? These aren't the deepest stories. Maybe they're one shot, but they're simple. Like, they're very simple. So my thoughts aren't going to be as elaborate for those because, again, it's a one shot. So it's not meant to be, I'm not gonna have as much to say about those inherently. So, and then we have ongoing, which doesn't necessarily mean specifically what ongoing means, which is an ongoing comic run that's still going on to this day. There are a few of those in here, but also this could just be the spot where I put comics where I haven't finished the whole run yet. So if there's a comic that I haven't, like, if there's more to it, and I like this, basically think of it as a first impression. So not only is it literally for ongoing comics, but it will also be for comics that I've started, haven't finished yet. This includes books that have multiple volumes or whatever, you know, so that's where I'm slotting the ongoing stuff into. And then finally completed, just full runs. Some of these are kind of technically ongoings, or like there's stuff that I haven't finished yet, but I'm gonna count them as as completed, because it's kind of like just like it's not something that I plan to necessarily continue. There's only a few stipulations to that, and I'll mention them when they come up. But basically, again, just expect it to mostly be completed runs. So a completed story, maybe like an arc or something, like that's basically what you can expect out of that section. As I previously mentioned, there are a lot of books here, so I'm gonna try to go as fast as possible, but I'm also gonna just enjoy my time, yap to the camera, and hopefully we have some fun. I don't know, maybe it will be boring, but that's kind of the point. That's the whole point of Reading Renzo. We're gonna yap, we're gonna ramble, we're gonna have some fun. I'm gonna get to talk about some books I really enjoy, or maybe not enjoy, and yeah, let's just turn that next page and get on into it. So as you may have guessed from the start of the video, we have Luna Snow World Tour #1. I think this is a one-shot though, so I don't know why they call it #1. As far as I know, that's just something Marvel does, and probably most comic book companies do. This was not very good. Okay, look, I got this. I'm a sucker for Luna Snow from Rivals, obviously, that's the main reason. And they knew that. They changed her design to be, as far as I know, this is really, yeah, they did change her design to be more like Luna from the game. But this comic in general just wasn't really my jam. I think, so as far as I understand, this took place after the One World Under Doom event, and I guess Luna was like on his side, and then they realized, oh, he's doing evil shit. But I guess people are still like, yo, you sympathize with Doom. That's kind of the whole plot of the book, is that it's kind of like everyone hates Luna because, again, she's a Doom sympathizer, or she was. And then basically this other pop star named Vibe comes into the picture and takes over her popularity. It's really basic, and it's kind of lame. It didn't really do anything for me personally. There's nothing really to enjoy here. There is I was really excited because they introduced the character of Vibe, who I was like, oh, that's a fun like rival character for Luna. You can give her like an actual villain. No, she's a good guy. She's actually just being mind controlled by Star Fox of all people, and I was like, what? It was such a random, like, all right, sure, take away her like only known villain and give it to it's very strange. I didn't really like it. I didn't really I didn't mess with it. It's not like horrible. I wouldn't say that it was like the worst thing ever, but man, there's so many better things you could have done with Luna, and especially with things like K-pop Demon Hunters, you know, like I feel like there's a lot more opportunity to tell more fun, like down-to-earth K-pop story, but obviously they have to be like, oh, she's a superhero and she's gotta team up with random characters like Wave and Sunfire. I don't recommend it. I don't think we're getting any more Luna Snow stories anytime soon, unfortunately. They just didn't really do anything interesting with this. I would like to see more Luna Snow stories. I'd like to see them try, again, take some K-pop Demon Hunter inspirations, because that's a great freaking story. Yeah, no, didn't really do much for me. I don't really recommend it. Even if you're a fan of Luna Snow, probably don't pick it up. It's not really worth it, in my opinion. In the same vein, however, I did end up picking up this Rivals issue for basically the same reason. Luna's on the cover. But also, the Rivals comics seem to be very hit or miss. If you remember last time I talked about the Hellfire Gala issue, and I didn't really like that. It was all kind of all over the place, and it was quite lame. Wasn't a huge fan of. Yeah, no, wasn't a huge fan of that, unfortunately. But the Cities of Heaven issue is actually pretty decent. It is very basic. You know, you got Daredevil and Angela fighting on the cover here, but It actually is more or less just a side story about Luna trying to get to a bar so she can do like a concert or whatever. And the entire issue follows her on this wacky, weird side quest. And it's got some fun dialogue. Again, it's very simple. It's got some really dumb shit in it too, like Namor and Bucky are fighting, so Luna decides to sing like an old time song from the 40s to like get them to like reunite. It's really stupid. Like, it's obviously just very cartoony hijinks. I mean, again, that's what the Rivals comics kind of are, and I think I broke it. Hello? This just fell out. What the hell? Okay. That clearly wasn't stapled in very well. It was alright. I think I had more I wanted to say, but truthfully, it's just kind of fun. Like this, like if you're gonna do a Rivals comic and you want it to just be kind of goofy, silly baby time, this is kind of the way to go. Just do a fun, concise, little, like, brief story that has, like, a good, like, overall positive vibe, and I think you're good, especially with Luna. Luna's a good character to follow through for it. I don't think they really did the best with what... Some characters feel out of place and a little weirdly written, but not going to complain too much. Again, it's a Rivals side comic. I just feel like the Rivals story is so interesting, and they could be doing a lot more with it, but the comics don't really do anything interesting, and I feel like you really need like a show or something at this point, because I feel like they've kind of lost the plot on what Marvel Rivals story even is anymore. Even in game, they have no idea. We're just going around in circles at this point, so... It's alright. It's okay. I wouldn't necessarily go out of your way to get it. I did enjoy it a lot more than the Luna Snow comic, though. If you want a fun Luna Snow based comic, this is the one you go for. You don't pick the one that says Luna Snow. You buy the Rivals one. It's not gonna like blow your mind. It's not gonna shock you. You're never gonna be like, oh wow, that's actually really well written. It's Marvel slop, but it was entertaining Marvel slop to say the least. Something that wasn't Marvel slop, however, has to be Psi-Dimensional Rivals. Now, you're seeing a real theme here. Yeah, I mostly pick up comics about Rivals, but despite the title, this actually has nothing to do with Marvel Rivals. This has to do with Peach Momoko's character Psi from the Demon Days story. And it's basically a spin-off that is all about Psi basically been tasked with finding a MacGuffin, which essentially creates an excuse to go to like different universes. It's a multiverse kind of story, but what they do with this is really fun. So basically the pitch of the comic is that it's Psi being tossed into different universes, and how they show different universes is that they're drawn by different artists. I don't know if the writing is actually from the other artists. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they are. Okay, so the storytelling is also done by the other artists. It literally is an excuse to do, like, whatever they want, which is with Psi as the main character, which is really fun, actually. I really like the concept. So Peach Momoko, like, heads the main story, and she's the one who kind of ties everything together. And truthfully, I mean, Peach's art style is kind of why you'd buy the book. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I absolutely love her art style. She just has this really fun way of like going about action, and everything is just so nice to look at and pretty. The concept of actually switching over to other art styles is actually a little bit weird because you'd think you'd want to buy a Peach Momoko art book just for her art, but no, there's some great stuff in here. This is one of the other issues that I believe is done by... I believe this is Emi Fuji's art style. I'm not familiar with who Emi Fuji is, but just a really gorgeous, like, almost noir, like, super manga style, which is dope. And then the final story in here is done by Stan Sakai, who you probably know for doing the Usagi Yojimbo comics. And just super dope. This is a dope concept. This is a 5-issue miniseries that Peach is doing, and it's actually so cool. I am really excited to check it all out. I didn't really know what the deal was with this when I bought it. I just kind of, again, I saw Rivals, and I saw Psi, I saw Peach Momoko, and I went, oh! But I should also clarify, Psy's getting a lot of love because the version of Psylocke in Marvel Rivals is technically Psi. It's not technically this version, I don't think, but like it's a variant of this version, but whatever. semantics, right? But basically, this is it's gonna be 5 issues, and I just decided instead of picking up all the single issues, because I don't actually really like it, despite what I'm talking about here, I don't actually really like collecting single issues. It's just too, like, they're not fun to collect. You can't really display them because of how flat they are. They don't like look very well. I do have a lot of my single issues up on a wall, and that's kind of where they go. 5-issue miniseries. I'm gonna wait till the trade comes out. It's already on pre-order on Amazon. I'm just gonna wait till that comes out to read the rest of it. So that will technically be followed up in another future Reading Renzo episode. But yeah, it's good. I recommend you check it out. I don't think it's a must read by any means. It's probably not Peach's best work, but because I guess she's only doing a little bit of it, you know, because technically this is a collab comic more than anything. But yeah, it's fun. I thought this was really nice. It was definitely better than the other ones, that's for sure, that I've read so far. Finally, I'm going to count these two as basically 2 sides of the same coin. We have Superman, Spider-Man, and Spider-Man, Superman. These are obviously the Marvel DC crossover comics. This is the Marvel, I believe this is the Marvel one, and this is the DC one. I mean, obviously they're both very collaborative, but you know what I mean. So I didn't read the Batman Deadpool stuff. I didn't read any of that. That was like right before I was really getting into like Marvel and DC at the time. But these are a lot more substantial. I mean, obviously these are the 2 big boys of the comic industry, so it's nice to have it. I just finished reading this, actually, I think, was it yesterday? No, it must have been a few days ago. I just finished reading this one, so it's a little bit more fresh on my mind. This is less so on my mind, but I will say, overall, the stories were pretty good. I really liked I really enjoyed the storytelling in the main, so there's like the main comic itself, which the main issue is basically Spider-Man and Superman versus Doc Ock and Brainiac. I don't know very much about Brainiac, but there's some really great art and stuff in here, and the story itself is really solid. This universe that they've created of Clark Kent and Peter Parker, like they share the same universe. Love that for a crossover, especially with universes that are as established as this. I mean, there's some great shit in here. Like, there's some really fun storytelling. I mean, just like, if you want to just look at all the stories there are, I mean, there you get a pretty good sense of what you can expect. There's some big name writers, too, in here. Like, you've got Matt Fraction, Tom King, Jeff Lemire. Like, they really brought, like, the most, like, power to this one in particular. I recognized a lot less of the names in this one, I will say. But if you had to put a gun to my head, I'd probably pick this one. I actually really, really love it. It might be recency bias, I'm not gonna lie, but I just like the type of stories in here. The main crossover story with, actually Superman becomes like a Venomized Superman, which is really freaking fun. And I wish they actually did more with that, because that's really dope. But obviously these comics have to have like a very fast neck pace. They both actually have, there's a Lois Lane and MJ in this, and then there's Alana Lang and Gwen in this, which I thought was really interesting. If I had to pick one, I probably would say the Lois Lane and MJ one's a little bit more exciting. They're like in the action. These guys are literally just sitting on a college campus talking the entire time. There is action. We do cut to the separate fighting, but it's interesting. I'm a little all over the place because, again, these are anthology stories, so they do go all over the place. There's a story in this that I really love where it's the Thing as, like, the main narrator. I thought that was super cool. They're really fun. They're really special. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're perfect or that they're amazing or that you're going to be 100% satisfied reading them. They are crossover comics. They're a little goofy and they're a little dumb. In fact, this one in particular has a really dumb issue. It has Superboy Prime. This story is terrible. Like, the one with Superboy Prime where they're like breaking the fourth wall is awful. I hated this one. This one sucked ass. But every other issue, I mean, there's some fun stuff in here. Even like the very short-lived Jimmy Olsen and Carnage crossover is so bizarre. But I think in general, I think I had more of a consistently fun time reading this than I did this one. That's probably all I need to say. I mean, again, you've probably heard of these comics. I would check them out if you're interested, but I would love for Marvel and DC to do a big, like, massive crossover event. I'm pretty sure they did it back in the day, but I would love a more modern, like, maybe 12-issue run, like, big crossover, Avengers, Superman, Avengers, Justice League, just something crazy, you know. I would love that, but obviously, I mean, look, I'm fine with this. This is cool for the time being. All right, so now we're switching gears into the ongoing section. So now we're going to spend a little bit, I probably spent way too much time just yapping about the single issues, but get ready for a lot more yapping, because now we're going to be talking about the very first ongoing issue, or comic that I'm talking about, which is Ultimate Spider-Man. I have heard amazing things about Ultimate Spider-Man, specifically this run. Close friend Thatch, he is a massive fan of this run, and I think he has most of the issues. And I expected this to be a lot, not worse necessarily, but more dated. I expected a lot more like kind of cringy dialogue, or maybe some references that don't hold up. But shockingly, I was very surprised to find out that this is just a really, really solid story. This collects the first 13 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. And it's really good, man. It is so good. I mean, this was my first Spider-Man story. So I was a little bit like, I didn't really know what to expect, but man, it is a great beginner start to Spider-Man. It does change some things. There are some villains that are a little bit different. I don't really care for like redesigned villains like Shocker, Electro, Green Goblin. I'm not a big fan of like when they completely change the villain's looks. I understand different universe, you got to do your own thing, but I just, for Green Goblin, I was like, man, this is the perfect Norman Osborn. And then he turns into the big Hulk Goblin that throws fireballs, and I'm like, personally not a fan of it. I get what it's trying to go for. I understand the vibe, but for me personally, man, it is what it is. But I think if you want to get into Spider-Man and you don't want to get into 616 and you just want to read something a little bit more stripped back, a little bit more basic in some aspects, but also a very good modern version of Spider-Man, this is the way to go. They've been releasing these epic collections, which is great, these modern epic collections, which is great. I mean, this is such a good way to get into it. The only problem is it's going to take a long time to cover most of Ultimate Spider-Man because it's a long freaking run. I think it's one of the longest comic runs of all time. So again, that's going to really suck. I'll try to keep it brief because there's so much to talk about, but I will say, like, straight up, like, Peter doesn't even get his full Spider-Man suit till like the very end of issue, like issue 3 or something like that. So like the fact that they take that long, they really set up Peter Parker. They really set up Uncle Ben. They set up these concepts in such a great way where everything feels so fleshed out and so well realized. Like you really do care about Peter and his plight. Everything they build, everything they set up is like really, really well done. My favorite issue, in fact, slight spoiler alert, I do recommend you check this out, first and foremost. Like, if you are a Spider-Man fan, you haven't read Ultimate Spider-Man, get on it. Just do it. Just pull the trigger. I mean, again, these are coming out right now, so you can just get these. They're relatively affordable. I think they're $50 Canadian, not cheap, but, you know, for 13 issues, my favorite issue is actually, I think it's issue 13. I'm pretty sure it's issue 13. It is just a conversation between Peter and MJ, where he reveals his identity, and it is just an amazing issue. It's so well done. I wasn't expecting, like, it was such a great conversation, and it felt so real. An interaction like that would normally be like a page or two in a normal comic, but the fact that they spent an entire issue on it shows how much they care about these characters, how much they're willing to put into the time and respect the reader and be like, hey, we're just gonna have an entire issue where these two talk. And it's really awesome. I was reading the whole time and I was just so like glued. I was so locked in. I was just like, dude, that is awesome. I don't know very much about this run. I don't know where it goes. I don't know where, I mean, I know eventually it ends. I know Miles shows up at some point, but I have no idea where that comes from. I have no idea how it concludes. So for me, I'm basically blind. There are certain things I know about, but I've been trying to keep very spoiler free. So Ultimate Spider-Man, absolutely awesome so far. I'm really loving it. I actually have volume 2 already, so I'm definitely talking about that during the next Reading Renzo. But man, oh man, this is so good. Again, I expected this to be dated and kind of like cheesy, but it's not. It is not at all, at least right now. There are certain elements of it that, again, you can tell this definitely takes place during the early 2000s, but again, they're not like referencing stuff all the time, and they're not like, the dialogue felt so modern and so like, wow, it's just Paper Girls. You may or may not remember me talking about this at the end of the last video. I actually made a goal for myself. I really wanted to read everything that I had said I was going to read at the end of the last video. And I did, I think. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty confident that I did. So Paper Girls Volume 1. I mentioned how I had kind of heard about this being recommended a few times. I actually might have exaggerated. I think I saw this in 2 shorts videos being mentioned very vaguely. They never said anything about the plot or the story or anything or even the vibe. And I was just kind of like, I was in my local comic book shop and I was just flipping through and I went, that's cool. Let me try it. It was super impulsive. Now that I've read it, to this day, this is the weirdest thing I've ever read. It's very strange, man. I don't even know how to describe this series. It's so all over the place and weird, but that's kind of part of its charm. It starts very Stranger Things vibes, which I love Stranger Things, so I was all here for. It's set in the late 80s. The vibe of like the kids riding around on the bike. So I was like, yep, this is Stranger Things, loving the vibe, loving the mood, loving the tone. Then it gets weird, and it gets weird really fast. And to this day, I have no idea what half this stuff means. Maybe there's some deeper message that I'm not understanding. Maybe there's a big reveal at the end. Maybe things come together by the end of it. But as of right now, it's bizarre, man. It is so strange. I mean, just going through it is the most, like, there's like, I don't really want to give too much away, but there's like time travel and there's freaking like weird dudes who speak another language. There's like dinosaurs. The shit is wild. Like, I'm telling you, if you want to go in blind to a really weird experience, you pick up Paper Girls. You're gonna have yourself a crazy time. That being said, I couldn't put it down. I was kind of obsessed with it. I was like burnt into I was like, what's gonna happen? Like, it's so cool. And all the characters are so matter-of-fact about things. Like, things happen and they're just like, shit. It's like, you should be reacting you should be reacting a very different way. The characters are like too logical, especially for kids too. There is some like naughtier language in here, so if you're not cool with like language and like some words that aren't as well liked in the modern day zeitgeist, maybe avoid that aspect of it. But if you're cool with that, check it out. I will say this has a show. Did not know there's an Amazon show based off this. I don't know if it's good. I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm gonna assume it's not good. And then this was just a case where I picked this up and I was like, man, this is crazy. It ends on this bizarre ass like cliffhanger. It's also super, like, it's obviously got something to say. I don't necessarily understand what it's trying to say. That's more because I'm not the smartest guy, unfortunately. So I hope I'm able to like figure out what the hell everything is by the end of it. I might have to watch a couple frickin' video essays or whatever to really understand it. But overall, I really like it. It's got a great art style. It's got some very fun humor. And I do like the characters. A lot of them are kind of assholes, but that's kind of the point. And they're kids too, so you can kind of understand. You can give them a pass. I did end up picking up the complete edition. I didn't know this comic was done. I thought this was ongoing. I thought this was a series that was still being written, but apparently it is complete. So I went to Amazon, I picked up the complete edition. That'll definitely be in the next Reading Renzo where I'll get my full final thoughts on the series, because I believe this is probably just like the first, like, I don't even want to say half. I'm gonna say this is like the first quarter of the story. There's a lot more to it than I thought, which is really dope, but I'm happy to know that it is over. Not because I am like, oh man, it needs to end, but more so I'm just like, oh, I like to just read one complete story and not have it drag on forever. So I'm really looking forward to getting into it, more of it. Just bizarre, man. Switching gears back into the world of Marvel, we have previously promised that I would read the Ultimate X-Men Volume 1. This is the Peach Momoko. We already talked about Peach Momoko in this video, but I mean, God, her art style's so cool. It's really sick, and I will say, does kind of carry the book, because I'm gonna be honest, wasn't a massive fan of the story here. I didn't hate it by any means. It's like a good like setup, but I do feel like Peach misses out on some aspects of her stories. I feel like she like kind of skips things, or like kind of like, I don't know, how do I say it? Almost like kind of like breezes by things really quickly. Like, 2 of the main characters meet for no reason. They just kind of meet because they're just in the same place. And then one of the characters is like, well, we should be friends. Like, it just kind of happens. And I thought it was really kind of forced, you know? And she gets involved and she has power. Like, they both conveniently have powers, and then they meet the rest of the kids that all have powers, and they decide to just call themselves X-Men for no real reason. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, like, would they do that? Like, is that something that they would do? Like, would they? Like, I don't know. I feel like Peach Momoko's stories, and I felt the same way about Demon Days, it feels like a lot of it is style over substance, and it feels so mean to say about like a professional person, but like who is way more accomplished than I'll ever be. But like, I don't know. I personally don't feel like the story, I feel like the stories could be better. I feel like you could have a lot more subtlety, or you could have more like, you could set things up a little bit better. I feel like in some ways it does feel like manga or an anime, where I feel like we will sometimes skip things, or we will sometimes go from point A to point C, and we'll skip B, and we'll skip some of the character development, which for me, I like character development. I mentioned how much I freaking love the Ultimate Spider-Man issue where it's just MJ and Peter talking. Like, I love that shit. And I feel like we do skip some very crucial stuff here. We've skipped some conversational stuff. We skip some context. And I feel like it would have been really cool to have some extra stuff like that. There is some cool stuff in here like that. I feel like it skips out on some aspects. Again, for me, there was this point where they're all just like, they decide to call themselves X-Men, and it just kind of happens out of nowhere. And it's like, well, most of the team is women, and I don't want them to call them like X-Women. I mean, I guess they could. I don't really care. But like, it also at the same time, like, they just kind of pull the name out of their ass, and it's kind of like, we're called X-Men because we're called X-Men. And it's like, I really like these characters, and I want to know more about them, and I don't feel like we get to fully know more. There's some origin stories and stuff like that. Like, I do like Hisako as a main character. I like Mei. I like Nico. Doesn't get a lot to do. So there's only 3 more volumes after this, because then they had to end Ultimate X-Men. So I'm very curious to see how it all comes together in the end. Maybe I'll end up liking the other issues more. I do actually have the next 2 already. So I'm probably, I think the 4th issue, or the 4th volume, I'm pretty sure that comes out relatively, like, sometime in July or something. So I think it comes out pretty soon. But I do like this. I want to just point that out. I actually really, really do enjoy this. This is also, by the way, my first X-Men book, so maybe that's another thing too. Maybe this being my first X-Men book was a mistake, but it's an alternate universe, and it's kind of its own thing. This very much is just Marvel as a manga. You know, this is as far away from a traditional comic as possible. This is very much just a manga disguised as a comic, which is kind of fun. For me, the art is much better than the plot. I really don't want to harp on it, and I really don't want to seem like I hate it, because again, you could pick this up and you could love this, and maybe I'm just judgmental, but I feel like there should just be a little bit more to it, you know? I just wish there was a little bit more character stuff. I wish there was a little bit more, like, ways that things naturally happen, instead of just things just happening because the plot needs to happen. And I wish there was more issues of just characters talking, and more issues of characters just like getting to know each other better. This is just the first volume though. This is only issues 1 through 6. So, you know, we got a lot more to go. And I think that there's a good chance that it will hopefully pick up. All right, the very last of the ongoing comics, that this is actually, I think out of all the list, technically is the only actual ongoing comic where it's still coming out to this day, the Absolute Wonder Woman. I got this for Christmas, kind of just by coincidence. I think it was supposed to be I think I put like 4 books on my list, and I ended up getting this one. I was kind of surprised, so I decided to give it a shot, and man, oh man, this is really, really dope stuff. So it may not surprise you to know that I've never read a Wonder Woman story. Hell, I haven't read most DC stories up until this point. This was basically one of my first DC books that I had really read, and my first real exposure to Wonder Woman as a character. I've always known who Wonder Woman is. I've always seen her. I've always known, like, oh, that's Wonder Woman, you know. Never read anything with her, though. So this is my first real experience with her, and this is a really, really dope take on Wonder Woman as a character. I think this is really, really sick. Again, can I really say that as someone who isn't as familiar with the character of Wonder Woman? Probably not, but just in terms of like the writing and like the style of like the world. This is very much, as far as I understand, this is a take where instead of raised on Paradise Island, she's raised in hell by Cersei? Or is it Hecate? I don't remember, one of the two. Aha, it is Cersei. I knew it. I knew it was Cersei. I was like, the name Cersei felt familiar to me. Anywho, yeah. No, this was super dope. The action was really fun. I really like how Wonder Woman is portrayed as a character, as this like, she's like this insanely OP, powerful witch type character, but she's also like incredibly sympathetic. She won't kill anything unless she absolutely has to, and even then she like apologizes. Very much like David Cornsweat's Superman, which is the vibe that I get here, and that seems to be more so what like they took for this version of Wonder Woman rather than Superman. It seems like Wonder Woman became more of the sympathetic character. This basically is an entire run where she's basically just trying to protect the city, and man, it's just really dope. I don't have a lot to say actually. It's very simple. My favorite issue is actually when she goes to when she goes down to Hades and talks to Hades. And that's a really fun issue, and I think it was really cool hearing her recount this like interesting story. And again, she's just put together in a very interesting way. She's very formal, and her design is also just bad. I mean, look at this design, man. This is an amazing design for Wonder Woman. Like I've always liked the gold for Wonder Woman, but this might be her best design. Like truthfully, this shit rocks. I don't have too much to say. This was just a really solid start. I know why so many people love the Absolute Universe. It's so fun, and it's such a creative sandbox to work into. I mostly got this because I really want to check out Absolute Batman. In fact, I actually have it, but I bought it recently. And I definitely want to check out more Absolute titles too, because I feel like the Absolute Universe is such an interesting, again, such an interesting playground. Because of this, I definitely want to go back and read some Wonder Woman stuff. I decided I'm gonna check out the George Perez run, because I've heard that's like very much like, that was, I believe it was after Crisis, and it kind of like rebooted the Wonder Woman franchise and did some crazy stuff and kind of set up a lot of where she ends up going now, which is cool. I don't know much about it. That's like the rough like pitch that someone gave me on like what George Perez's Wonder Woman is. I love this. I think this is great. I got the hardcover actually because my parents got it for me, and now I have to only exclusively buy hardcover Absolute comics. So that's why it took me so long to find Absolute Batman, because it wasn't at my local comic book shop, not in hardcover. I really want to try Absolute Martian Manhunter. I'm gonna get as many of these as possible because these are super dope and it's super awesome. Okay, so now we're getting into the completed stories, and like I said, there are a few stipulations, but for the most part, yeah, these are completed runs, or a full circle story, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to start off with one that I did mention last time, that being the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run. Yes, this is the omnibus. Now, you may remember, or maybe not remember, I actually got this. Yes, I have two versions of the story. Here's the thing. Marvel Premiere Collections kind of suck, to be honest. You know, say what you will about Compact Comics, but at the very least, I feel like Compact Comics will, you know, include the entire story. This is only the first, like, 11 issues. I found out later that Hawkeye actually has 22 issues. I was absolutely loving this comic. And I got to a certain point where it just stopped, and I was like, huh? They don't even really make an effort to make it make sense. They literally just end it, and then they include the bonus Young Avengers issue, which is cool. I mean, it's neat to get that Young Avengers issue in here. But again, like, for me, I want the whole story. I think the Premiere Collections are bullshit. They're more expensive. They don't always include everything, and we'll talk about it again later. But I feel like they kind of, they're the cucks of comics. I don't know if that's accurate. I was so mad after I figured out that that wasn't the whole story that I literally went straight to Amazon, looked up Hawkeye by Matt Fraction, just bought the omnibus. I don't want to collect omnibuses. I have no interest in collecting omnibus. For one thing, it's just too expensive of a hobby, especially this is already an expensive hobby, and the last thing I need is buying these real thick hardcover books. Again, they're very pretty, they're very gorgeous, but it's just kind of like, not necessary, you know what I mean? But I had to get this mostly because I think the trades were out of stock at the time. There's 2 trades. They might be in stock now, but at the time they weren't. So I just had the one omnibus. And all that shit aside, I freaking adore this book. This has become one of my favorite books. It's just straight up. This, along with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, 2 of my absolute favorite comics I've ever read. Now, maybe it's because it's some of the first comics. In fact, this was the very first comic I read after the first Reading Renzo. So this was very, very much like right after that. So this was still pretty early in my comic journey, but man, this is such a creative story. I love how Matt Fraction writes these characters, and I really love this version of Clint. I'm so used to the MCU Family Man version of him, and I love that version of Clint. I really do. It was very different. It's very, very exciting seeing a very different version. A more like, he's like an old grumpy man, but he's not really like, he's more like disillusioned. I don't know how else to describe it. He's such an interesting character, really. And I think that's what makes this comic so special, is that he's got this very particular vibe about things, and I really, really liked it. Kate's story is also really, really good. In fact, this was the first time I finally understood why comic fans wish the movies and stuff were more accurate, because I watched the Hawkeye show way back when, and I really enjoyed it. The finale kind of has a weird finale, but aside from that, like, I really liked that show. When I was reading this comic, I meant, man, I wish that show was more like the comic, because I love Kate's side plot when she goes to LA, and like, that's so fun. And I love how you get the 2 art styles. David Aja, however you say his name, just lovely art style on those books. Like, just such a unique, it's cartoony, but it's also realistic, but it's done in such a particular way. There was one issue that genuinely had me like shocked reading it. Not because it was like dark or anything, purely because it was one of the most creative things I had ever read. And it's an issue with a dog, and the way the story is told is so freaking awesome. You gotta read it. It's just so well done. And this comic in general is told in such a unique way. I don't really want to give too much away. Again, the art style, the vibe of it. They even include like a mixtape. Let me see if I can find it. So actually, David Aja, however you want to say it, David Aja actually includes at the end here. You can't really see, but it's an issue playlist. So he actually includes different songs when I guess he must have been listening to it while writing the comic. He has an entire like, just an insane like playlist, and a lot of these songs are stuff I've never even heard of, which is so cool. Man, it's actually insane. I'm really just like, issue 22 has like a billion songs in it, which is crazy. Hawkeye 13 has Rosemary's Babies theme. Like, what the hell? It's so specific. I don't even know what the context of that would be. I don't remember. But yeah, dude, I can gush about this comic all day. It is glorious. Go do yourself a favor. Maybe don't pick up the omnibus. I only got this because it was just like $90, by the way. And the normal Marvel omnibuses go for like $125 at the cheapest, all the way up to like $175, $200. Like, they get it really expensive. This was only $95 at the time. I probably wouldn't have bought it if it was more expensive, but I really wanted to read the story, and I'm very, very glad I did, truthfully. I mean, this is a wonderful comic. You don't need any prior knowledge to know anything going in. It's just a very nice, fun, self-contained story. There was a character introduced that I had genuinely no idea who existed, and Hawkeye throughout it is saying this thing, like and it sounds like he's a boomer because he's saying this really weird expression, and I was like, why is he saying that? It's really bizarre. And then halfway through the comic, it's revealed why he's saying that, and I'm like, oh, that's really creative. I didn't know that character existed. Now, to be fair, maybe he didn't exist until this comic came out. I have no idea. I didn't actually do that much research. But again, wonderful comic. I am totally a fan of this. I hope Matt Fraction gets to come back and do something like this again. It's just so fun and so creative, and man, I freaking love this. I freaking loved it. I thought it was dope as hell. At the end of the last Reading Renzo, I did say I was going to read All-Star Superman, which is widely regarded to be one of the best Superman comics of all time. But I was unprepared. I was like, I didn't have confidence that that was going to be the best Superman story to start with. I had done some research, and apparently, yeah, it's not a very beginner-friendly Superman story. It's not, like, unreadable, but now that spoiler alert, I read it, but re-looking back on it, yeah, it definitely would have been a little bit unsatisfying and a little overwhelming in certain cases. So I decided I needed to read a different Superman story, and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to read. And I ended up discovering Superman for All Seasons by the GOATs, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Man, oh man, this book kicks ass. This is a freaking gorgeous book through and through. It is, I mean, Tim Sale's art is just like magnificent, and I don't think that's really something anyone has to say. It's just kind of common knowledge. But like, now to be fair, it's very stylized. I can understand people not really liking it. It's very particular with how, especially with how Superman is drawn. So if you're not a fan of that style, I totally get it. Myself, I think it's quite great. I really fell in love with this book. I think it's got some interesting things too. Like, I didn't know Lex Luthor ever had hair. I don't know if that's a thing created, probably not. I was gonna say, well, is it a thing created for this book? It was really weird seeing Lex Luthor with hair. I wasn't prepared for that. It's just a really fun, like, origin story in a way. It's not really an origin story, I guess, but it really does a great job at focusing on Clark Kent and the Kent family in general. I absolutely love how the final conflict of this book isn't a big fight with Luthor in a mech or whatever, or he's punching some big guy. It is just Clark Kent saving his town, and I think from a natural disaster. And I think that is so cool. I really, really loved. I thought it was just really dope. I thought it was really something special, and I'm almost like lacking the words for it. Like, it's just so well done. I don't actually have too much to say about this book. It's just, I'm so glad this was my first Superman comic, because after watching the movie, which I mentioned, watching the movie made me like love Superman and like the concept of Superman. Like, it finally kind of snapped me out of that, oh, he's a lame superhero kind of mentality. It made me go, oh yeah, I mess with this guy. This was the perfect vibe comic, and in my opinion, my favorite Superman comic. Now, I've only read 2, so it's not exactly, I guess 3 if you want to count Superman, or 4 if you want to count Superman and Spider-Man, but spoiler alert, out of the other Superman comic I read, this is my personal favorite. Probably a crazy hot take, but I don't care. I'm gonna die on that hill. I love All Seasons. It's so good, man. It's so good. This is definitely up there. I do have the Marvel, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's Marvel collection. I haven't read any of them yet. I'm very excited to get into them because I've heard that they're some of the best, not just Marvel comics, but they're some of the best comics in general. So, and if they're anything like the quality of this book, then we are in good freaking hands, man. That's all I can say. I know I didn't get into like specifics, but I was literally flipping through the pages while I was talking, and I was literally like, oh man, that's so, like, I was remembering how much I love this story when I first read it, so I couldn't help myself. I'm a bit starstruck, to be fair, but yeah. So switching gears a little bit before we jump back into DC, this technically would count as a continued or an ongoing, sorry, this would probably count as an ongoing comic, but I'm going to count it as a one-off because I don't think I'm really interested in checking out too much more. Now, this is gonna require a little bit of an explanation, but the comic we're talking about is The Mask. We're talking about the Mask comics. So, a little bit of history. I've never actually fully seen the Mask movie, which is gonna sound crazy. That's how most people know this character. I guarantee if you've heard of the Mask, it's probably because of the Jim Carrey movie. I never finished watching it. I think I got like halfway through, and I think I watched it at an age where I didn't really understand it, so it didn't vibe with me, and I had, for whatever reason, I haven't felt like ever going back to rewatch it, even after reading this, which is very interesting. And I think it's because I don't think the movie would give me anything that this comic didn't, you know? So this is the first omnibus, I need to make that clear. There is 2 omnibuses as far as I am aware, and they have done other Mask stories outside of that. I know there's like a DC crossover one, and I think they did a more recent story. I'm not actually sure. I haven't really kept up with it, but this is what I wanted to read. This is the bulk of what I knew about, and the only reason why I knew about it in the first place was because of a Nostalgia Critic video of all things. Like, when I was younger, and still to this day, when I really like a YouTube video, I watch it over and over and over again. And one of the videos I watched over and over and over again was the, it's called The Mask Was Supposed to Be Gory or something like that. And it was a Nostalgia Critic video talking about, like, it was basically a video essay, him talking about the Mask comics. And ever since then, I've been like obsessed. Absolutely obsessed with wanting to. I was obsessed with wanting to read it when I saw that video, probably when I was in middle school or whatever. And then I kind of forgot about it, and then comics slipped my mind, and during high school and stuff, I completely moved that past. And then when I was starting to get into comics, I was like, oh yeah, the Mask comics, those are kind of cool. I wonder if they still sell them. I didn't know if they were going to be hard to find, or if there was like publishing issues or whatever. But no, they are conveniently in the form of actually, relatively speaking, very cheap omnibuses. This was $40, $40 Canadian. I think it was actually cheap. It might have been like $35 on Amazon or something like that. Like, these are not expensive, and this is not a tiny book. This is a thick book. It's got what? I mean, it's got like almost 400 pages or something in it. Yeah, it's not short. So that's a little bit of backstory, but let me tell you, this was awesome. This includes 3 storylines: The Mask Returns, and Mask Strikes Back, and they're all really fun. I think the art is interesting, and obviously the Mask is very gritty, and they're not as violent as people would make them out to be. Yeah, they can get pretty violent at points, but I've never felt like, oh, this is going too far, or oh, this is too edgy. It's very silly. It's very slapstick. Like, even by the end of it, it's like, it's very much just like cartoon humor. But I kind of like it. I like that it never goes too far, and that it never really feels like it's trying to be edgy for the sake of being edgy. It definitely feels like a gag comic. It's very goofy and lighthearted most of the time. It can be dark, and there are darker things in it, but none of the characters ever like swear. There's no it's not pure R-rated is what I'm trying to say. I know that's kind of roundabout, and it does get violent, that's for sure. There is a good amount of gore. The Mask run is interesting itself because the first like 50 plus pages is following Stanley Ipkiss, and then the comic kind of radically changes, and it becomes almost like a cop drama, like a detective story, where they're trying to take down like the mob, and you get a lot of long conversations between like look, does this look like something that should be in the Mask? It's just like a long conversation between mobster guys. But I love that. Mask goes from person to person, right? And so we get to this perspective where the guy wearing the mask wants to take over the world of crime. That might be my first personal favorite story because it's so fun, and I love the crime world. I love like exaggerated mobsters and shit, so I really love that. And then it ends crazily. There's this character, Walter, who if you've ever looked into the Mask comics, you know who Walter is. He's just this big mafioso who's like silent, and he's like bulletproof, and he's ridiculous, and he's made for such a fun opponent to the Mask because he doesn't talk, and the Mask is quipping every 10 seconds. There's also a lot of really like dated like references and stuff to the Mask. Like, he'll just reference some random shit, and you're just kind of supposed to go like, okay. Like I said, it does continue technically, but the original run with Walter and the characters that were introduced in the very first part of the Mask all the way up until the end are concluded here. So this is very much a like a big story. There might be some of that elements that return in like the 4th story that Nostalgia Critic did talk about at the time, but I remember all the main stuff he mainly focused on was this material. This was the most important stuff, and that's what I wanted to read. And overall, it was satisfying. Again, not the craziest writing or anything, not gonna blow your minds, but you'll have some fun. I remember there were plenty of times where I was actually like cracking up because of how goofy this shit is. Like, there is some genuinely silly, dumb shit in here, and some wacky hijinks, and yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I think if you're going to, like, if you're a big fan of the movie, you might not like this. I think it's a very different vibe than the movie. But if you are like me and you're just like, again, I don't know, there's something about this that I really like. I wish they did more Mask comics. I think you could do more with the character. I think that's why they don't do anything with him nowadays, is they're almost like worried and they don't really know what to do. He's so specific and really it's difficult, but you could definitely find a way. The Mask is almost like a Ghost Rider type of situation. It's like you get very different people depending on who you give the powers to. I don't know anything about Ghost Rider. I don't know why I'm bringing up Ghost Rider, but I think the idea is that you can do a lot with this concept, and I feel like we haven't really done a lot with it. So I would love to see more modern Mask comics. I don't know who owns the rights, or if anyone even still wants to do Mask, but Mezco, please reissue your Mask figure or make it easier to buy. I want it so bad. I don't want to pay like $400+ for it on eBay. But if you like cartoony goofiness, and if you like some violence and crime-based, like mafioso-based kind of stories, then this is really fun. It's fun. It's pure fun, honestly. That's all it is. Okay, at the rate that we're going, this video is gonna be like 4 hours long. So I'm gonna try to keep this relatively, or try to pick up the pace a little bit, but I needed to read a Batman book. I needed to. I mean, truthfully, Batman's one of those characters you gotta read. Everyone's gotta read it. And I found out a lot of Batman runs are actually pretty easy to get into because he has, generally speaking, a pretty consistent world, and you're kind of able to do whatever the hell you want with Batman. And so I started with A Long Halloween. Dude, again, another Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb book. Sorry, I almost forgot his name for a second. Good God, man, this is a great book. I totally get why this is iconic as it is. This is the Batman story. God, the art is so cool. I praise the art in the Superman story, and that does a really good job at being super like open and like optimistic, I guess. There's a lot of like empty panels where like it feels very like emotional when you're reading it. They do a great job at making everything feel claustrophobic in this comic. They do an awesome job at making things feel really like lots of dark shadow work and stuff. Man, it's so stylized. It's freaking awesome, dude. I was reading it and I was like, I think I read this not in one go, but I almost read this in one go, and I was just in love with this thing. Just so freaking cool. I don't want to go out again. This is like the quintessential freaking Batman book. I think you have to read it. It's like required reading for freaking Batman. But apparently there's sequels. I didn't know that there were sequels to this when I picked this up. And the way it ends, dude, it ends in such an interesting note where the mystery is so interesting and it keeps you thinking about it. And it's so dope. I cannot wait to read the sequels. I don't know. I've heard, specifically I know about Dark Victory. I don't know if there's something else. I've heard that there's another sequel, but I'm not entirely sure. The Long Halloween is a good Batman book. Who would have guessed, right? But no, I was actually really worried I wasn't going to like this. I was worried it was going to be too moody or too like depressing for me, but man, no, I thought this was great. I really do think that like if you want a really freaking good Batman book, a great place to start. Joker is kind of insane looking. Like the way he draws him, like 14 billion teeth for some reason, but I kind of love that. There's villains like Scarecrow and stuff that are in this. Like, oh dude, it's just sick as hell. Fun fact, I didn't like the Batman when it first came out. I thought it was boring and lame, and every one of my friends crucified me for having that opinion. I've since rewatched it, I think twice, and I like it a lot more. But the first time I did not care for it. Obviously, that movie takes a lot of inspiration from this book. It also seems like the next movie is going to take even more inspiration from this book, which makes me super happy because, again, if you're gonna take any inspiration from a Batman story, I think this is a good way to go. I can't say too much. I haven't read that many Batman books, but I'm just kind of wasting time at this point. You've read it, or if you haven't read it, go read it. Okay, I think it's time to piss some people off. Okay, I'm not gonna piss you off. I think this will be, hopefully, from a pretty understandable place, and I did like this book a lot. In fact, I like this book so much that I actually am a bit of a LARPer, and I put it as my home screen. That is because that one panel gave me more emotion than anything else in this entire book. And obviously, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All-Star Superman. One of the very first Superman book, or one of the first books I bought, period, when I was getting into comics. I didn't love this. Okay, no. Let me stop you right there, okay? That sounds crazy. Let me just say I didn't hate this. And even me saying I didn't love this makes it sound like a crime. But I didn't adore it like I expected to. This is the quintessential Superman book for a lot of people. A lot of people will tell you this is the greatest Superman thing ever written, or piece of Superman media ever. There's great shit in this book. There is awesome shit in this book. Then there's some concepts that I didn't really personally like, or things that I didn't really personally mess with. I think once I got to the end, once I read through the entire story, I was very satisfied. I was like, yeah, that's a really good story. I enjoyed that. But there were some things that unfortunately didn't work for me as well. There's a lot of really high concept ideas in this that obviously are there to kind of be like, well, this is Superman and this is the legacy of Superman and all this stuff. But for me, I didn't resonate with a lot of those things because I'm not smart. So a lot of like the more ridiculous high concept sci-fi ideas weren't really my favorite. That's just me. That's a personal thing that has nothing to do with like the actual quality of the story itself. Again, it's like objectively it's probably amazing, but I didn't personally resonate with me. There were a few issues in here that in fact just didn't really do anything for me as much as I was hoping. There was an issue regarding Pa Kent, and I really wanted to love that issue, and I just felt personally that the same sort of issue with Pa Kent here didn't really do much for me personally. And I wanted to care. I wanted to be like, oh wow, that's really sad. But they throw in these other Supermen. There's a lot of like other super dudes in this book. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes I'm like, what the hell are we doing? You know, and I really do hate to say that because that makes it sound stupid. There are things I really like. I like Lois becoming a superwoman or whatever for a day. That's a really fun concept. Jimmy Olsen like steals a coat and then like does whatever the hell he wants, and like Doomsday runs around. That's kind of ridiculous. I really like the prison issue where we get to see Luthor in prison and Clark is there and he's trying not to show off his powers, and Parasite is in there. I thought that was a really dope issue. But yeah, then we get into like random Supermen and like random goofiness. I do like the Bizarro stuff too. That was really fun. I didn't really care for like the smart Bizarro Superman or whatever it was. I didn't like get that character out of here. I don't need him. I like Bizarro and how dumb it was, and I like how Superman has to like convince these idiots to build a rocket, and it's so bizarre. And you can see what I did there. It was so strange. This is definitely for seasoned readers. This is not. Again, if you are not into comics and anyone says start with All-Star Superman, do not trust them. Don't touch this book unless no, don't touch it. Don't even try. For me, if I read this first, I would have been pissed. I would have been pissed off. I probably would have dropped the book. You know, so many people said that New Frontier was like the quintessential Superman book, or like DC book to start with, and I didn't even love that, to be honest. Although, the more I think about it, the more I do want to go back and reread New Frontier. In fact, I'm probably going to end up doing that at some point, now that I'm a little bit more into DC and now that I can appreciate stuff like that. Now that I know what the story was like, I think I can go back and actually properly appreciate it. But enough about that. All-Star Superman, look, this is a great book. This is a really good book, but there are some issues that I liked and there were some issues I didn't like. And it for me, that wasn't the case with something like for All Seasons. I loved All Seasons start to back. I didn't love this start to back. There were things I adored about this book. As I mentioned, that panel that I showed you, that was the only thing in this book that genuinely got me. That was the one thing where I sat there looking at the page for like a minute, just like thinking about it, because I love that specific moment so much. There's some great writing in this book. Obviously, it's Grant Morrison. He's like the most beloved freaking writer on planet Earth. But like, even the artwork's kind of weird. Like, I get it. It's very well done, but like a lot of these people have very weird faces and stuff. It's just, I don't know. I respect it. I really do. It's much better looking than anything I could ever do, and hell, most of us could ever do. But like sometimes the facial features are a little weird, and I don't know. It's not going to hit everyone in a particular way. So I hope I didn't piss too many people off. It's still a good book. I'm gonna watch me revisit this in like a few years and be like, yeah, this is amazing. But right now, currently, again, it's All Seasons for me any day of the week. This is good, but I don't see myself coming back to this book anytime soon. This is gonna be another case of technically an ongoing book, so this does continue. But for the time being, I don't think it's something that's going to be easy to get a hold of because of the fact that, well, I don't think they've released anymore. The beginning of the John Byrne run of Fantastic Four. Let's just put it like that, okay? So, this was recommended to me by my buddy Thatch, who consistently said, hey, if you're gonna read Fantastic Four, like I kept asking him, like, oh, hey, what's your favorite like Fantastic Four stories or whatever? And he kept telling me that John Byrne run was a great place to go. It's called Back to the Basics, and they really do, this is, by the way, this is 200, let me go back. This is 232 issues in. That's when this starts. This is it starts at 232. And all things considered, you don't really feel like you missed that much. You feel like you maybe missed 50 issues at most, but the fact of the matter is I've only read the first, however many the first like Stan Lee collection was, and I remember I really enjoyed that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby collection. I thought that was great. But if I'm being honest, I think John Byrne's taken it. I really do. I really love the art style. And don't get me wrong, still very wordy. Like this took me, out of everything I read here, this definitely took me the longest to read. This took me a long time to get through. Now granted, it is about 500 pages. Maybe a little bit less. Yeah, it's almost about 500 pages. So this is not a small book by any means. Also, not all of John Byrne's run. I think you could probably get 2 more books out of John Byrne's run, I'm pretty sure. Maybe 1 or 2, yeah. If Epic Collection decides to release more John Byrne stuff, I'm probably gonna end up getting it because I really love this, man. I thought this was great. There's some great writing here. There's some really good characterization and stuff. I think they nailed the vibe of like Thing. He's so good. Like Ben Grimm is so good in this book. Sue, we're starting to see the push. As far as I understand, Byrne is actually the one who introduced the concept of Invisible Woman. By the way, still Invisible Girl in this book. Crazy that it lasted that long. I thought Invisible Girl was something they changed like a few years in. No, because this has the 20th anniversary in this book. 20 years of Fantastic Four. Also awesome, by the way, that this actually has the 20th anniversary. Just so happened to fall on the 20th anniversary. That's so freaking cool. I loved so many of these stories. I mean, there's one where this was really rewarding for me too, because there's one where they fight Ego, the living planet, and it legitimately was like almost exactly like Guardians 2, and I was like, that's really freaking cool. I wonder if James Gunn got that idea from there. It was such a fun concept. There's one where an old man has seemingly crazy powers and he's like making shit happen. There's one where Human Torch is trying to find out like what happened to this guy who got murdered, and it leads back to Hammerhead of all people, and he fights him. There's Frankie Ray Nova who gets introduced here. I didn't know Frankie Ray was a girlfriend of Human Torch, but then she becomes a Nova and then pisses off with Galactus. There is a great few issues in here where Terrax shows up, messes with the Fantastic Four, and then says, "You're gonna go kill my boss Galactus for me because he sucks." They decide to team up with Galactus, take Terrax out, and the Galactus is like, "I'm hungry." So then he wants to come down to Earth, and then the Avengers all team up, not all of the Avengers, but like a few select of the Avengers team up with the Fantastic Four. They take Galactus out, and then they're like, "Oh, Galactus is dying, we need to heal him." And it's the most like crazy like set of like issues, and I was just like, I was just like in love with all these stories. Again, there's some slower runs for sure, and with it being an Epic collection, it literally is issue by issue. It's not like a collection of like the best issues. It's not like a best of compilation. It is literally every issue. So there are some like slower ones. Like there's ones where they go out into the desert, and there's like tornadoes that are like killing people. Like that one was kind of weird. But no, there's some really solid stuff here. There's a what if issue in here that's like, what if the Fantastic Four never got their powers? That was really fun. There's this really dumbass roast issue that goes on way too long, and it's done by like a cartoonist, so it's obviously very goofy, but man, it drags on like way too long. I remember I was reading it and I was like, wow, it's still going. Yeah, no, dude, this is such a solid, this is a great set of Fantastic Four stories. I really like John Byrne's art. I love John Byrne's stories. Like I mentioned before, very wordy, not as much as Lee and Kirby. I mean, I guess Kirby was never wordy, but you know what I mean. Like Lee was super wordy, and that's what I hated the most about the first Epic collection. Not really any different here. It's still super wordy. If anything, Byrne likes to throw out bigger words. So he'll use some random word I've heard in a sentence like once, and I'm like, what are you doing, bro? You're just doing this to sound cool, I guess. Inhumans were introduced in this book too. For me personally, I didn't know anything about the Inhumans, but I had been seeing their figures and stuff for a while, so it was really weird to see the Inhumans in this. Again, just this, I mean, honestly, this is some classic Fantastic Four goodness here. I mean, honestly, this is some great shit. I really love this, and this put me right in a great Fantastic Four mood, and it's been such an interesting experience because I don't know if you guys have known, I've never really been a fan of the Fantastic Four. I mean, I wasn't a fan of Marvel, to be fair, but I wasn't aware of them. The Fantastic Four weren't like, that was mostly because Marvel didn't do anything with them in the MCU. So for me, I was like, well, who are these goofballs? Like, why do I care? Like, I don't care. These guys aren't cool. They're not the Avengers. They're not Tony Stark. And that was the mindset I had for a very long time. If it weren't for Rivals, like, introducing the concept of the Fantastic Four really to me, and then the movie that ended up coming out, I wouldn't have cared about the Fantastic Four at all. But that first Epic collection and now this, I mean, I really love the Fantastic Four. I think they are awesome, and I totally get why they are some of people's favorite Marvel characters. I consistently love them. I think they are great. Now, these are great. I still need to go back, and this does skip a few things. For instance, I haven't read the first Galactus issue, and I haven't read the Wedding of Reed and Sue. I haven't read the Birth of Franklin or whatever. So there's some stuff that I'm missing that I need to go back and read before I can be like, oh, I'm a big Fantastic Four fan. Like, I am missing some very obvious stuff. But all in all, I mean, no, man, I am a fan of Fantastic Four now. I'm going to probably read a lot more Fantastic Four going forward, because this is peak. And last but not least, to wrap things up in the world of Reading Renzo, we're going to talk about one more Fantastic Four book, and that is the one that I teased at the end of the last Reading Renzo, Fantastic Four Solve Everything by Jonathan Hickman. So, this is the Jonathan Hickman run of Fantastic Four. I don't believe it's the entire thing, and I don't believe this is where it started, or maybe it did start here. I don't know personally. Here's what I've gathered some research about. They've cut a few things out of this book. They've trimmed some of the fat. That's basically all I know, is that this is like an abridged version of Fantastic Four. But I will say I just finished this very recently, so my thoughts are still kind of fresh, but I do really, really, really enjoy this. Jonathan Hickman's writing is so good. Now, I will say, I do have a few stipulations. Not a fan of the art. Just straight up not a fan of the art. I get it. It's going for a realistic vibe. I get it. I appreciate it. but not really my jam. I'm not gonna say it's not good, because it's certainly good. It is some, I don't even know what that is. Like, it's definitely a good, like, well-drawn book, right? I just don't like the art personally. It's not my jam. For me, when I'm reading a comic, I like cartoony. I like stylized. This doesn't really feel like that. Don't get me wrong, very impressive art style. Like, all the detail and rendering and stuff. I mean, it looks great. Again, looks fantastic, right? Just not a fan, personally. Personally speaking, not a fan. I've settled that John Byrne is my favorite Fantastic Four artist right now. Obviously, that could change. I like John Byrne's art more than Kirby's. Sorry, Kirby's iconic, but I like Byrne's art style a little bit more. Sorry. What can I say? I won't deny Kirby's art is amazing. I'm not gonna sit here and say Kirby's art sucks. It doesn't. It obviously doesn't. It's super iconic. And also, Byrne is obviously trying to replicate his art style in a lot of ways, for sure. What am I rambling on about? None of this matters. I love this book. I thought the plot was really interesting. There were some issues and stuff that I didn't really care about. They do kind of separate the Fantastic Four for a lot of it, and that wasn't my favorite. Like, there's this whole New World subplot that I didn't really love. Sue deals with like fish politics for probably way too long, and that was also kind of like, I believe this is where the Future Foundation was introduced, though. I also love Valeria and Franklin as characters. They're so fun. Val, there was like this reveal where I was like, okay, I don't know anything about Val. All I know is that she's their daughter and that she's really smart. That's all I knew. And then like I was reading it, I was like, oh, she's like probably like 6 or something. And she's like, I'm only 3, Dad. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, what the hell? She's really smart. She's really freaking smart. But no, this is a great subsection of stories. Again, the art does kind of hold it back a little bit, and then it does kind of just abruptly end. Although, I will say, it does end off on this really sweet story. Little tiny story with Spider-Man and Franklin. And Spidey is not in any of this book. He only appears at the end. Again, that might have been something that they cut out before. I'm not entirely sure. But even if they didn't, Spidey being at the end of this book was such a nice way to wrap up this story. Again, it does end a little fast for my liking, but I do think that it kind of works with the context of the rest of the story. I'm very curious to know how this continues, or if it does continue or whatever, but either way, this is a really fun, satisfying Fantastic Four collection. I mean, really, like, I don't know how many pages it is. I don't see any page numbers or anything. I don't like how certain books don't do that. But it's a pretty thick book. I mean, it is the thickest of the Premier collections that I've bought. But I might end up going back and grabbing the other. I know that like there's a completed Jonathan Hickman like trade. I think there's 2 volumes of that. I might end up going back to grab that one and just reading that as a whole. Because again, this is cool. This is really, really neat. But I do feel like, well, I will say, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. Aside from maybe the ending. The ending does kind of skip around a little bit. So I feel like, and like we switch art styles a couple times, so I wonder if there was like some sort of like weird, like if there was another issue there that was made in between, and if they just decided to cut it to like make it end faster. I'm wondering if that's what happened, because they had to include the Spider-Man stuff. That stuff was great, but like, yeah, no, it's interesting. A great story through and through. I think it's probably, I mean, it's a really good story. I mean, I love Jonathan Hickman's writing. Again, he gets a little sci-fi, he gets a little bit weird. Not like Grant Morrison weird, where I kind of was like, what's happening, huh? But it definitely does start to dip into some weird shit. But thankfully, there's always a character to kind of balance it out and be like, what the hell are we talking about? Which I love. I love Ben and Johnny's relationship in this book. Thought that was amazing. Reed is great. Lots of movie inspiration here, by the way. Oh my God, lots of movie inspiration, specifically for the new Fantastic Four movie. When I was reading this, I was like, oh my man, this is like a plot that would come straight out of that movie. It was really, really cool seeing, and even Matt Shakman, who directed First Steps, actually talks about how a lot of his run was very much, I mean, obviously that movie is inspired by the Coming of Galactus story, and not this story, but I will say, like, the writing and how characters talk to each other and their relationships, it definitely felt a lot of inspiration from Hickman's stuff, which was really, really dope. I'm a Hickman fan. Consider me a Hickman fan at this point. I need to find out what his other good books are, because again, this is really dope. Just the art style, wasn't a fan of it, but not bad. Really not bad at all. So there you go, folks. Look at all these magic books here. I had a lot of fun reading a lot of this stuff. Again, for the most part, I think the story that I disliked the most was, I mean, well, aside the Luna Snow story, that was the one I disliked the most, obviously, like the single issues. But the single issues are kind of their own thing. They just kind of do whatever the hell they want. But everything else, though, was so much fun. It's been so fun getting into comics. I mean, there's something so satisfying. I think I mentioned this last time, but just something super satisfying about getting into this unknown world that you've been in before, and or that you've missed out on, and you get to experience all these stories that, you know, only being a movie and TV show person is fine, but you are missing on some great stories. I mean, hell, I don't read books very often. I'm sure if I were to read more books, I would be like, wow, look at this, and wow, look at that. But comics, let's start one place at a time, right? Comics have been great, and like I said, if you are looking for some of the best, it's so cool, man. Obviously, there's a lot of Marvel and DC, but you can expect the next part to be a lot more diverse. I have a lot more random books. I have Dark Horse, I have Image, I have like Boom, like I have random ass crap, and I think that's sort of what I wanted to do. The backlog is immense. Yeah, so for context, I have like 27 books in the backlog that still need to be read. Now, to be fair, a lot of them are continuations. Oh, actually, 28 technically. I'm currently reading Something is Killing the Children. Spoiler alert, that's gonna be the next video. I've started. We're gonna start like a couple more like franchises too. There's one in particular that I know my buddy Aiden is such a huge fan of, and I've been wanting to read for a very long time, so that's gonna be really fun to check that out. And I'm gonna try to continue, during the ongoing part, I talked about books that I want to continue reading more of. Definitely gonna do more of that for the next section. I'm gonna read more Ultimate Spider-Man, probably more Absolute Wonder Woman, maybe not, I'm not sure. Again, I've got a lot of books. I haven't even got the second volume of Absolute Wonder Woman yet. But there's a lot of books I need to read, like I said, but I'm gonna take it one step at a time. And the nice thing about these videos is that you don't expect them anytime soon. They come out when they come out, but also they're gonna happen more and more. And I'm gonna try to generally keep about 15 plus books is sort of my goal. I think it's a very healthy amount of books to talk about. It's a lot of books to talk about, and probably way too long of a time frame, but that's the whole point. We're reading, I'm Renzo, and that's what we're doing. So yeah, I think I've rambled on long enough. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. You know, as always, it means the world to me. And if you guys have, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys have any comic recommendations that you want to give me, or be like, hey, check this out, you know, give any suggestions. There are still some stuff like the Daniel Warren Johnson stuff I need to check out. And I can't buy everything. That's also a lesson I need to learn. I cannot buy everything. If I start buying everything, I'm going to go insane. And I'm going to lose track of what I like, because there are a billion comics out there, and so you just can't expect to have everything. Like, it's unrealistic, but I'm gonna try to buy as much as I can and enjoy as much as I can. You may have noticed there's a lack of IDW Sonic here. I just haven't had the chance to read IDW Sonic because I've been playing catch up with so many other franchises. So hopefully IDW Sonic, maybe you'll get more of that next time. Hopefully, I don't know. Read something, you know, see what you enjoy. Read a comic, pick up a comic book. Out of this stack, the one I'd recommend the most out of this stack is probably Long Halloween, Superman for All Seasons. Those are both really good. Like, that's a great Superman book. That's a great Batman book. Both great starting books too, I feel like. Ultimate Spider-Man, great starter book. I think that's a great pick. Then if you want to read something weird and kind of goofy, maybe Paper Girls, I don't know. But yeah, bye.